There's not always somebody with construction experience, or you're leaving it up to the property manager. And the longer it takes, the longer it's taking you to meet that business plan, and the more things that can come up and kind of derail you. So yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough. I think asset management is by far the hardest. And I think one reason it hasn't been talked about enough, at least in the going several years back, is because the market was doing so well, right? It was on fire. Nobody could mess it up. Doesn't matter how bad of an operator you were, all you had to do was sit and take the appreciation, right? Not really force the appreciation. Well, now we're in a different market. Now you're going to actually have to deliver your business plan and force that appreciation. So you're going to see the difference between a good operator and a bad operator.
This is the Real Estate Vibe Show, and I'm your host, Loomba. And today I have a very special guest with me, my good friend, Jorge. He's like a celebrity these days. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Vinky. Thank you. Excited to be on here with you.
A little bit about George. George is the CEO of Elevate Commercial Investment Group and G&T Construction. George has been investing in real estate for over 25 years. He started in single-family, small multifamily properties, and eventually worked his way up to large 100-plus unit multifamily properties. He also has a construction company, which is bringing in over 30 million plus in yearly revenue and growing. He is now an active and passive full-time multifamily real estate investor. George and his company, Elevate, currently has 7,000 plus stores. I think it could be more. I might have old data. And 500 million plus asset under management. So correct me, George, if I'm wrong. Is it correct numbers?
In total, we've acquired over 8,000 units, but we've had several exits. So yeah, somewhere in the 6,000 at this point.
Great. So today I thought we're going to be talking about asset management. So asset management is a process of managing and overseeing multifamily properties to maximize their value and return on investment. Asset management is an essential component of real estate investment and is an important for, I would say, not only for investors, but also for the tenants, communities, and economy as a whole. And effective asset management can help you create value and generate long-term sustainable returns for all stakeholders involved. Like I mentioned, today we'll be talking about asset management with George and how to fine-tune your systems to better manage your assets. So, George, would you briefly start with your background and how did you start your construction company?
Yeah, so background, I think it was around the time that I was studying to be an electrical engineer that I realized that I didn't want to be an electrical engineer. So during college, I started doing research and just looking up successful individuals. And it seemed like most of the wealth they had, either the way they had created their wealth or at least exponentially grown it, was through real estate. So I became attached to that. I was like, okay, how do I invest in real estate? And, not knowing any better, I went and got my real estate license. I got my broker's license. I started doing those type of transactions. And it wasn't until I finally found a real estate coach and hired them, and then, started taking action on what I learned there, that I actually started doing deals. This was single family back then, so about 16 years ago, and started doing enough deals to where 1 year into graduating and then working at UPS in their engineering department, I was able to quit my W-2 and I started doing real estate full time. Focused a lot on fix and flips. I really liked transforming those properties. And that's where the construction company came in. So I couldn't find enough good contractors. We got screwed over a couple times by contractors. And that's when I decided, you know what, I'm going to bring this in-house. I had actually worked with my uncle who owned a construction company for 2 years in college. I had learned a lot of things then. And then my actual job at UPS was not really engineering. The role was called engineering manager, but really I was the GC for UPS. Like any expansions, any large roof replacement, I was the one that was coordinating all that. So that was about 14 years ago that I decided to bring the construction in-house, started doing a lot of single family fix and flips. And eventually that turned into, we're ripping the roof off and adding a second story to eventually just scraping the houses, building them new. Then started doing some small multifamilies. And then about 6 years ago, I got introduced to multifamily syndications. So before that, I thought to buy these large apartments, 100 plus units, you had to come in with millions and millions of dollars, and only these big REITs could buy these properties. And then I found out about syndication, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. You can put these investors together to invest alongside you, and you can take these properties down. So I became obsessed with that and kind of followed the same path. I hired a coach for the multifamily, and it took me about a year to kind of wrap my head around everything and realize that, hey, I'm buying a business. I'm not buying a single family home, And since then, like I said, I put all my focus towards multifamily syndications. And since then, I've been able to acquire about 8,000 plus units and continuing to grow and scale.
Oh, that's a good story. I like that. So you found your niche. So when you were doing you did multiple fix and flips too, right? I was reading in your bio.
Yeah, I mean, I've done, oh gosh, I don't know. I think over 250 or so, and also wholesaled another 200 plus, and done seller finance. I've done everything there is within single family. I had a rental portfolio for a while, single family. But yeah, I mean, I really found what I love, 10 years into it.
Wow. I think that was good hands-on experience. Like you mentioned, you were like a GC when you're working for a UPS job, right? So you were kind of doing it yourself. So maybe that was a realization point for you. Let me start my own company to get away from all the pain points what I'm seeing over here.
For sure. I mean, one thing I think I realized there was, so UPS had, and a lot of companies have this culture, but where you've just got to work hours on end. And, there was, no matter how hard and how good you worked, you were getting capped. I didn't like the fact that there was a ceiling, right? I didn't want a ceiling. I wanted to work hard. I didn't mind the hours. I mean, I've always been a workaholic, but I didn't want to be capped at that. I wanted to also build something greater than me. I'm not sure where that came from, but
that's a human nature. Like I have heard this at a very young age. What makes us different from the animals? Because animals, they live in the two lines. They have the top line and the bottom line, so they live their life there because they cannot think or enhance their experience or perception. But the humans, they have brains. So we have the bottom line where we start, but we do not have any ceiling, like you mentioned. And the sooner you realize, sooner you start on the exponential growth trajectory. I mean, it's a hard concept, but that's how we learn being a Hindu in India.
Yeah, and there was a lot of kickback from my family. I'm a Hispanic family. Parents are both from Cuba. I was born in Miami, so I'm Cuban American, but not a lot of us. I mean, we do. There were a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, but the moving away. So in 2008, I moved to Dallas because the market crashed and just it was really hard to do things in Miami at that time. So that part was tough, and it's funny when I quit my W-2. My mother told me, "What are you going to do about insurance?" And I was like, "I just made within a month. I made how much I was making at UPS. I think I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. So since we're going to be talking about the asset management today, so I wanted to start with my first question. So when you look at the properties, how do you assess the value of a particular property or a portfolio? Because I know we have done a bunch of portfolio. I've done with one with you too, and you have done multiple. And what factors do you consider?
Okay, so I mean the easy thing is you're taking the NOI and you're dividing it by the cap rate, right? By the market cap rate. But I think there's more to it than that, right? I pay a lot of attention to the basis going in and what that price per door looks like too, which I don't know if that's maybe because coming from the single family, that's really what you focus on, not so much the value created, but I think both of them play a part in the value of the property. Obviously, you've got to take the age into account and how much components are going to begin to shut down once a property, 10 years in, let's say from a new build, major components begin to shut down. So same thing if you have a large renovation done on an older property. So a lot of things to take into account when pricing. And then a portfolio, when you're looking at a portfolio, the good thing about it, the pros are you're getting that scale instantly with a portfolio, right? But you need to take into account the location and how far apart those properties are, and if it's really scale that you're creating, or are you just buying different properties in different locations?
Also, the area wise too, geographically, you're saying.
Correct. And I mean, location comes before anything. I didn't even mention that, but first thing we do when we look at any deal is we go deep into the location. What does the population growth look like? What does the job growth look like? What's the average household income? Crime. So definitely location first, like they always say with real estate, is very crucial.
When we buy the properties, we acquire the asset and everybody thinks, oh my God, we did it. We closed the asset and everybody's cheering. And what happens after that? When you close the asset, to me, the real work starts, right? That's what asset management starts from that point onwards, right? So how would you define asset management? Just to begin with, first, let's understand that. And what are some of the key principles one should follow on the asset management perspective? I mean, cheering is good. Yes, we close the property, but at the same time, now what next and why?
Yeah, 100%. I don't think it gets talked about enough. It takes a lot of work to close a deal. So I think that's where, the celebration comes in. You've raised all the equity, you've secured the loan, you've taken it all the way to, I don't want to call it the finish line, but you've taken it to where you actually acquired a property. Mm-hmm. But in reality, the hardest part is once you close on it and you actually have to deliver on your business plan, right? Managing or asset managing multifamily is not easy, especially when you have all different types of things being thrown at you, right? Like we've seen. So with COVID, and then now with the Fed raising interest rates, you've got a lot of outside forces working against you. There's a reason why we only invest in landlord-friendly states, because we don't want that interfering, but some things you just can't help it, right? So, and then to maximize your NOI, there's so many things that go into doing that. It's not just, hey, let me bump the rents, right? There's so much more that you can do. And I think what's crucial is one, pinpointing what those KPIs are that you need to meet your business plan, and then working on those and making sure that you're heading towards that on a weekly basis, adjusting when you need to adjust, not looking at backwards data, right? Like looking at it real time. So you're not getting a monthly report and then trying to react off that monthly report. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes with, then I'm not even mentioning the construction and the CapEx part of it, right? You know, a lot of the times you're spending millions on these properties and um, there's not always somebody with construction experience or you're leaving it up to the property manager. Um, and the longer it takes, the longer it's taking you to meet that business plan and the more things that can come up and kind of derail you. So yeah, I don't think it's talked about enough. I think asset management is by far the hardest. And I think one reason it hasn't been talked about enough, at least in the several going several years back, is because the market was doing so well, right? It was on fire.
Mhm.
Nobody could mess it up. Doesn't matter how bad of an operator you were, all you had to do was sit and take the appreciation, right? Not really force the appreciation. Well, now we're in a different market. Now you're going to actually have to deliver your business plan and force that appreciation. So you're going to see the difference between a good operator and a bad operator.
So you mentioned CapEx. CapEx goes kind of hand in hand with the asset management, right? Because you are trying to maintain the asset at the current condition or just like keep on going. And at the same time, you're doing the CapEx or the improvements to get your tenant space up, right? Or the percentage of occupancy up. So how does that work? You know, how, because you have a separate budget for CapEx and then you have separate reserves for the asset management. So can you shed some light on that too a little bit? Or is it like one bucket to do everything?
No, definitely not one bucket. I mean, look, it's you got to see it as two different things, but they work hand in hand. So to properly manage a property and maximize that NOI or just keep your residents happy and be a good property manager, you should have some CapEx, right? There's things that you need to take care of. The property should be well capitalized. If not, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to manage that property or asset manage the property. So I do think they go hand in hand, but they should be kept separate at the same time. You know, we like to really keep it separate and not have the property manager manage the CapEx, you know, have them more focused on the management, our renewals, delivering good service to our clients, the leads coming in, the leasing, all those kind of things, while our construction company focuses on the CapEx part of it, the renovations part of it. But throughout that whole journey, there's good communication between both.
Oh, nice. So I'm going to ask you here. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced or experienced as an asset manager? Because you've been in this journey for a long time. And then if you face some challenges, how do you address them? I mean, it's like continuous challenge or something different every time. It's kind of pretty much same that you can create the cookie cutter solutions.
I wish, you know, I think you could definitely have some systems in place and some procedures for certain things, but you know, it seems like it's always something different. Whether you know you're not able to hit certain rents for whatever reason, maybe you're not hitting them on certain units, so but you can hit more on others. So then you've got to adjust that business plan, right? And maybe adjust the renovations and the CapEx. There's things, you know, amenities, we always kind of, we have a budget for it, but we always kind of leave it open and we like to take feedback from our residents and adjust that. And then there's the things I talked about, right? Like when you have outside forces causing changes, you've got to be able to be flexible there too. And you know, during COVID, everybody, it was hard for when it first started to continue to get those rent bumps. So there had to have been a lot of adjustments made there on the business plan. It's been hard to, it was hard to get materials and labor and get CapEx done, period. So, you know, now with the interest rates, things are really tight with anybody that has an adjustable rate. So looking at the expenses and looking at your budget and really removing anything that's not 100% necessary So to me, it's something constant for sure.
Hmm. Let me ask you this. One scenario, if the occupancy goes way below the break-even point, due to the conditions that we are in, the economic conditions, and also due to COVID and the rent moratorium is gone, and you might have to kick some tenants out. And if you go below the break-even point, so what is your strategy to revive the property? Are you going to put more CapEx to beautify it, to attract more tenant base? How do you handle that? I mean, can you give me one example that you might have worked already, or you're looking to set up a plan how to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the market, right? But I mean, one, I'd rather have occupancy. A lot of investors get focused on occupancy, and to me, physical occupancy doesn't really mean anything to me. It's more economic, right? Economical vacant occupancy. So I'd rather have the apartment or the property at, let's say, 75% occupied and everybody's paying, and I know we have good residents, and kind of start from there than having 90% occupied, but 15% of that is not paying and they're bad tenants and they're causing issues on site. So to answer your question, let's say there's a scenario like that, and we take it down to that 70 something of good paying residents, then we've got to look at the rents and make sure that we're competitive. Make sure, if you mentioned renovations, if we're not competitive with our current units, and obviously we have the capital and the CapEx there, then yes, we're going to throw in the renovations. Maybe we throw in some concessions to boost that occupancy up to a certain point. We won't just leave it there. We'll get to, let's say, 85% or 80%, where we start feeling more comfortable with the occupancy, and then begin to remove the concessions or continue to bump the rents. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers you 100% there, but a lot of different ways to adjust with the rents, and but with that said, yeah, I mean, if you definitely want a good tenant base. So if you got a
Good
clean
tenants,
house,
and then you can always measure your success as you are progressing with your business plan, right? Because the money coming in, you can keep on improving or whatever tenants want, because you said that tenant relationship is really important for you as well, right?
Correct. I mean, renewals, we put a strong focus on renewals. I mean, a renewal saves you so much more money than at first sight what you think, right? Because
exactly.
Nobody takes into account how long that unit's going to be vacant, plus the amount it's going to take to turn it. So keeping the residents happy and renewing is very important to us.
Yeah, you're so right. Bringing the tenant in the first time is hard, and also it costs a lot more versus retaining the current tenant. So let me ask you this question here. What is your approach regarding the tenant relations? What tactics do you use to maintain the high tenant retention rate and minimize your turnover?
So on every property, we do community events. We try to do once a month. The goal is to get the community tight, and anybody that has friends in an apartment or enjoys spending time at their property is going to want to stay, right? The percentage of them renewing is much higher versus somebody that just lives there, goes in and out, in and out. So trying to build that community feel, we've implemented community apps, and it's been very successful. We haven't done that on every single property, but we've done it on our A-class deals, and it's amazing how much engagement there is. And they start planning their own events within the property, and yeah. So I mean that, and then obviously delivering work orders is very important, right? Getting work orders done in a timely manner. Yeah.
So how do you identify some of the areas of improvement in your asset management process? Like anything special that you do that to stay on track?
I mean, we track certain KPIs, like I mentioned. So constantly tracking our reviews. How many reviews are we getting? We're tracking our work orders. How many work orders were open? How many work orders were closed? Renewal rate, obviously. So those are being tracked on a weekly, maybe even daily, depending on what it is. And we adjust as needed.
Yeah, and also you want to talk about renaming the property. You do that too. So that way get the new reviews on the Google to create some traction that way, right?
We haven't done it to every single property, but the majority of our properties have been rebranded. We like to make it well known that there's a new ownership and kind of start fresh, right? With our existing residents, and then also, everybody on the outside too, because a lot of the times the apartments will get a bad reputation. So we think it's very important to come in and change the name and also start making changes, right? Because changing the name is only one thing, but once you start actually cleaning up the outside and the curb appeal and obviously leading into the interiors, it all goes hand in hand.
So let me shift gears here. Let's talk about the technology. Technology plays a huge role in today's life. So everybody's getting technologically advanced, and asset management is a process that might be using some technology tools, or you might have some softwares. Can you shed some light on that? What are you using that's comparable with your property management company? Are you still using the third-party property management company or no?
So we actually last year brought in-house management. We've slowly been taking over our properties, but we don't manage them all just quite yet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was just more control in-house. To answer your question on the technology, we definitely use a lot of software in the management, right? That syncs to each other and automates things. One of our goals this year is to bring in a software that's going to automate a lot of the KPIs that we track. So right now, it's just being done off spreadsheets and data entry, and some of it is being brought in from the softwares we use. But there are a few different softwares that we've looked at, and we've done demos, and we've been just investigating where it will just automatically pull all that data that we want and give us sort of a dashboard that's constantly updated.
Interesting. And how do you foster the collaboration and communication between your team members as well as the stakeholders, like investors or whosoever the key stakeholders are?
Yeah. So you're saying, how do we communicate with them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a investor portal, and we now have a system where we every month are sending out an update to our investors. We didn't want to do just quarterly. We wanted to make sure we got something out monthly. And then we, depending what's going on the property, we'll have pictures, sometimes maybe even videos. Obviously, the financials will be attached. And we try to communicate as much as we can to our investors, so that way they feel comfortable. I know obviously I've also invested passively on several deals, and the thing that drives me crazy is when there's no communication. It's the unknown factor.
That's true. I agree on that 100%, because every investor, I'm going to talk from the investor's perspective, because they're in a deal for experience as well, not just for the returns. And if they do not have a good experience for 2 years, 5 years, as long as they're with you on a certain deal, they're not going to come back. Experience is everything. That's our human nature. And it's not like that you have the money and do not communicate. And then if investors do not have that feel, they're not going to come back. So it's always a good idea to stay in touch with the investors and provide them the experience that they're looking for. Here, I'm going to ask you this question now. We talk about the risk. We talk about the asset management. We talk about tenant base. We talk about CapEx a little bit. So how about the industry trends? How do you stay informed about the industry trends, and what are some of the best practices that you have in place or like to tweak it going forward?
Ooh, that's a good question, Vinky. So many different ways. I get certain newsletters in my email, and I don't know them off the top of my head, the exact ones, but I mean, there's some that are really detailed, and I take the time to actually read them. I don't just skip them over. That helps. I think I attend a crazy amount of events every year, where I get to talk to others in the business. Yeah, I've got part of a mastermind as well, where same thing, right? We get together quarterly and we talk about the trends and what's going on, and we share what's working, what's not working. So I think it's very important to not only take the information that's written and the articles and all that stuff, but also speaking to other operators in the industry.
Great. So what advice do you have for others looking to fine-tune their asset management process and improve their investment returns?
I would say if you think you're doing everything you can when it comes to asset management, you're not. There's so much more that can be done. And I'm not saying we're doing everything either, but, we continue to get better and better and better. So I would say make sure that you've got the personnel and the focus on your asset management, that you've got somebody on your team that's digging into the numbers, that's checking everything that the management company is telling you. And, we've got access to all of and I'm talking about on the third party ones now, because obviously in-house is in-house and we have access to everything. But we have access to our operating accounts. We have access to the software that's being ran for the property management. We have access to the staff, everybody on the staff. We do our weekly meetings where everybody on the staff is there. Oh, maybe not everybody. Sorry, the maintenance isn't on there, but the key personnel, on-site personnel, are on those calls as well. So we're hearing feedback from everybody, and then we're not just taking the reports they're sending us. We're digging into Entrata, Resman, whatever the software is, and we're pulling our own reports at the same time. Logging in and looking at the account, if anything, if we need to dig deeper to something. So, and then we're looking at projections, right? Because asset management, there's one, it shouldn't just be checking the property manager, it should be checking your projections as well and making sure that you're actually leading and trending towards those projections. So there's a lot to be done, in other words.
Right. So you were talking about your coaching program earlier. What is that all about? Can you share some insight on that as well?
Sure. So, it's not a large education platform like some of the ones that you see out there, and nothing against them. Good friends with most of them, and been to most of their events. But this one's more of a hands-on approach. So what I realized is that even going to some of those larger programs, you get just enough information to kind of make you, enough to get started. But when you get started and you start getting into the weeds, it's not quite there. So the idea behind this was a selected few I'm going to take down the path and teach them, and hands-on approach where we're actually going through live deals that I'm doing or that the students are doing. If we have a due diligence on a property, we're all meeting out there at the property, and I'm showing them how it's done. They're seeing it, they're feeling it. And so far it's been really good. You know, I love seeing the growth. I didn't think it was something that I would like as much as I do, honestly. You know, and I get why some grow this large educational platform. But my goal is still to build a portfolio and just, you know, take some others along the way with me in that journey, you know, help them grow their portfolio while also helping me grow mine. And yeah, so that's the idea behind it.
I think that's a good idea because collectively and collaboratively, we grow exponentially. I use all the buzzwords here, but that's the truth, right? Because if you're collaborating, even through the mastermind program that you got or the coaching program you got, you're giving others opportunity as well to grow. So that's going to plug into your growth as well at the same time. I like that. So one golden nugget for my audience, please.
One golden nugget is to make sure you have a plan for your asset management. You know, I'm going to stick to the topic here. I appreciate the grind and what it takes to get that deal closed, but make sure that you have a plan once you close it of how you're going to execute on that business plan, who's going to be in charge of what, and what that looks like.
I like that. The clarity is very important.
Yeah.
The whosoever is doing what is very important. Otherwise, it's very convoluted and you don't get anywhere. Thanks for sharing that. So this brings us to a rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You have to answer in 1 word or 1 sentence only.
Ooh, okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So what is the one most important thing that you have learned in your life that always worked for you? And how did it change your life after learning it?
Focus.
I like that. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Because wherever your focus is, that's where the energy goes.
Correct.
And if you have scattered focus, you're not going to get anywhere in your life. Thanks for sharing that. I love that. So please share 1 good book that you have read and then you liked it so much that you'll recommend it to my audience.
I guess can't be my own book. I'm still writing it. So let me see. Gosh, there's so many.
No
good
Rich
ones.
Dad Poor Dad either, because we have so many of those.
Okay, Traction. I'm not sure if a lot of people say that, but that was a pretty good one for me, especially if you're looking to scale your business. Highly recommend Traction.
Yeah, that's a good one. I read that one too. That's really good. And I think it's a PDF version is available too, that one, if somebody's looking for that. So in 1 word, what does life mean to you?
In 1 word?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Journey.
That's a good one. Life is a journey. There's no destination. So you might as well enjoy wherever you are in your journey. What is your biggest passion?
Biggest passion. In 1 word?
You can use 1 sentence. That's fine.
Building something grand to leave to my children.
The legacy, like that.
Yeah.
If you can turn back in time and talk to your younger self, what would that be and why?
I would probably say focus on building the team first. I spent a lot of years, you know, trying to do it on my own, and doing it on my own, but the team can take you much further.
Yeah, I really like your answer because it's very important. So if it's just like the way I look at it, 1 person is just like a 1 dot. And if you have 2 people, it's just like 1 line from 1 dot to the other dot. You're not getting anywhere. But if you add few more dots, you're able to create a picture out of it. And it's more clarity. And thanks for sharing that. How can people reach out to you, George?
Bunch of information on our website, which is elevatecig.com. If they want to go ahead and shoot me an email as well, which is George or Jorge, Jorge, @elevatecig.com. I can send them over a bunch of free content that I have. I'll include some due diligence checklists, some asset management forms that I have. That's it.
Thanks, George. Thanks for coming to my show.
Thank you, Vinky. Appreciate it.